So we spoke about last time about the sukkah and the shulchan. That Reb Tzodok taught us that the inyan of a sukkah is about somebody relying fully on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the shulchan represents that the person still has one part of his being that he wants to control. And it's like Chazal say, Haka b'dei Shemayim chutz m'yireh Shemayim, that a person can't control anything besides his yireh Shemayim, and from there everything will be decided. So there was a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai said to, I remember who it was, maybe it was Reb Tarfon, but he basically said that if you always sat like this with your shulchan in the house, lekiyamta mitzvah sikah miyamecha, you were never yoytzed mitzvah sikah, because according to Beis Shammai, a real reliance on HaKadosh Baruch Hu includes relying on Him for Yireh Shemayim. You have to rely on Him for everything, because He's the Creator. He created all the ingredients that are within you. So whatever is going to come out of you, there's no other place that you can take anything from, other from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, other from the one that created. And therefore, whatever ingredients He placed within you, whatever potential He placed within you, whatever circumstances He placed you in order to bring out that potential, that's going to cause the result of how you are. And all your desires, all the things you want to improve, all the things you want to get help with, you have to face the Creator. He is the only source that can change anything, that can do anything, that can make anything happen, because He's the only thing that really is. Essentially what Reb Tzodok is teaching us here is that you thinking that you exist as separate is just a trick of your mind. Your mind is telling you that you are in charge of something, because your mind is experiencing that something as if it's happening to you at will. However, if a person were to try to control his thoughts, if a person ever had a specific direction how he wanted to take his mind, he will very quickly realize that his mind has a mind of its own, so to speak. It's not your will that's really driving your mind, it's something else. And this something else is not under your control, because you're never taught how to control it. And therefore, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's formulas playing out within your mind. You're observing them, but there's no real separate you that exists in reality. The you that you think is separate is just a mind, a human mind, trying to make sense of a situation that it doesn't understand. And therefore it comes to the conclusion that it is separate. But in reality, all of humanity, and in fact all of the universe, is one being. And this one being expresses itself in many different facets, in many different aspects. And one of the aspects that this being can express itself in is called the human mind. And therefore, when the human mind expresses itself, it's expressing the Creator. It's not expressing the individual. The individual is just a combination of koiches, a combination of forces that the Creator created, and they're interacting with each other within the individual being, within the individual spirit. But essentially, all these forces are also interacting in other people. And they're also interacting in other areas of nature. And they're also interacting in other places in the different galaxies, in the celestial bodies. So these are the same forces, these are the same beings. None of it is yours individually. They all just come to different conclusions within you because of the information that you have access to and the misunderstandings that are individual to your brain, to your mind, to your way of seeing life. And so when a person wants to go back to his origin, he wants to go back to his source, the only way is to abandon everything that he thinks he knows and throw himself upon the one who created it all. He needs to look at HaKadosh Baruch Hu like a child looks at his father. The child doesn't know. Nor does he ask. Nor does he need an explanation. He just feels that his father will take care of him. And that's enough for him. He sleeps good, he eats good, life goes on. And we lose that trust when we start realizing how clumsy people are and how little they know. However, the one that created us is not a person, and on Him you can rely fully. He knows what He's doing, and He's making it happen, and you're just experiencing that happening. And to the extent possible, you want to train the koiches within you to surrender to that bigger will, to that bigger truth, so that you don't create areas of friction with Him, which is ultimately yourself, which is ultimately the real self that lives inside each one of us, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's nobody else. Why doesn't it feel like HaKadosh Baruch Hu to us? Why does it feel painful sometimes? Why is it so confused? It's because we've covered the original ingredients with so much misinformation, with so many ideas that are the complete opposite of what really needs to take place. And some of this is on purpose. Some of this is because when a person is born, he's at such a low level of understanding that he needs to be controlled, literally. And because we don't have the chokhmah to build that control within him in the proper way, in the way of chesed, so some of that control happens in the way of gvura, in the way of force. You can't do this because it's going to cause too much harm, it's going to cause too much damage. You don't understand why, but it's true. And therefore, this is off the list of what can be done. It's going to cause pain. And like that, we train the child, we train the human mind to understand that there is a reality that it has to put up with. It has to see reality for what it is, and it has to live within reality. That's the only way to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If a person starts escaping reality, he's not getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's going further away. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is identical with reality. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ultimately is reality properly understood. So all the misunderstanding within reality, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not miyached his name on that misunderstanding, because there's no yichud there. You can't be miyached the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding by definition means that there are different parts saying different things, and there's really no common denominator. There's really no way, there's no place where all these can live together. And therefore, when a person grows, as he starts going deeper into the Torah, starts going into the secrets of the Torah, a lot of the things that originally were given over to him, mitzad ha'gvura, were given over to him, mitzad, you can't do this just because, they start taking on a new face. They start becoming real to him. He starts seeing the midas hachesed in those things. And some of the things really change. His behaviors can really change. Things that before he had to do, because if he wouldn't do them, then he would feel like he's lacking something, he's missing something. And now because he knows the internal workings of what he's dealing with, he knows that he shouldn't be doing these things at all. And this we can see especially when it comes to Yuna Chinuch, that even big people, the older they get, the more they realize that they didn't treat their kids with enough respect. They didn't recognize who they're really dealing with, what they're really interacting with. And therefore, even if at the time that they did something, they felt that they were doing the right thing, as they evolved, as their brain matured, as they came to know reality better, they realized that they were wrong. And this has to do also with the ultimate judgment that we're going to go through. All of us, after we finish our lives, we're going to judge ourselves. And some people think that that's the hanocha. Oh, I'm going to judge myself. I'm going to be nice to myself. I'm not going to judge myself harshly. If all it is me, if all it is my neshama, then I'm not too worried about it. I'll deal with myself. I'll get by. And that's an erroneous thought, because the one that's going to be judging us is the real us. It's not the one that you're imagining in your brain. It's the real you that's going to be judging what really took place. So let me give you an example. Say that there's a teacher in a school, and there's a child that is displeasing the teacher. And the teacher does whatever he does. He screams at him, he smacks him, or he does whatever he does to take control, and his mind is completely justified. This child was disturbing the class, he was causing problems, and my job is to keep order, and my job is to put him in place. And he's going to sleep fine, he's going to be fine, everything is going to be okay. However, after he passes, he's going to have to look at this event from a place of truth. And from a place of truth means that he's suddenly going to know things about that child's life that he was completely unaware of while he did what he did. He also is going to have to deal with what happened after. How what he did affects the child's shalom bayis. How it affects his chinuch on the children. How it affected how he dealt with himself and what came out of him eventually. How he dealt with the people in his community, or the community that he should have had and he didn't have because of whatever happened. All these things are going to be real because they are real. And when that nefesh is going to gain access to this real story, and the nefesh is not going to be imagining, the nefesh is not going to be in a brain where it can decide what it wants to think. The nefesh is simply going to deal with reality as a nefesh has been created to deal with reality, meaning whatever is painful, whatever is kind is kind. Wherever I caused hurt is bad, Whatever I cause pleasure is good. So these realities are going to be so real, there's going to be no human brain, there's going to be no Greek debates of getting out of the situation. The situation is just going to present itself in its full glory. This is what it is. This is what we have to deal with. And therefore, when we think of ourselves judging ourselves and we think that's easy, that's getting off easy, the opposite is the truth. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu were to judge us, just HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we would always get by. He would always be merachem. We would never have a problem. But it's going to be your way of looking at life, your understanding, but not in the brain where you can choose what you understand. Not in the brain where you can have a shoichad and say, oh, now it's me, let me be lenient. There's going to be no leniency because a nefesh is the way that it is to everyone the same. And so the truth of that reality is going to have to be digested. And when a soul has to digest bad, when a soul has to digest negativity, it comes at a price. It comes at the price that it can't be absorbed in the ultimate goodness and kindness of the Creator. While it's trying to digest negativity, while it's trying to digest pain that it caused in the world, while it's trying to digest all kinds of problems that happened as a result of this person's life. And so we have to be very careful not to cause problems in life to anyone, and not to assume that it's gonna be easy, it's gonna be fine. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kind. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kind, but are you kind? Are you so sure that you're kind? If you're so kind, how did you cause trouble in the first place? And so that's a reality that we have to be able to deal with. Another reality that we have to realize is that the reason why a person shouldn't do anything wrong is not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to blame him for it. And here I'm trying to address is that Reb Tzodok very strongly goes with the kav of Yediyah over Bechira. He was mekabel from his rabbis, and he firmly believed that the only way a person can get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is if he believes in Yediyah and he doesn't believe in Bechira. Because Bechira, by its very definition, removes HaKadosh Baruch Hu from certain areas in your life. It doesn't matter how important those areas are, but there are areas in your life that we're going to say you're responsible for, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we do that, in this day and age where people are not up to par, people are not at the madrega where they can handle that kind of responsibility, we're causing a person to go further and further away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because every time when he does something bad, instead of him coming to be mefayis HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a pure heart, what's really happening inside of him is he's getting more angry at HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's getting more distant. Why did you place me in this situation? Why did you cause me to go through all this? I want to be good. I want to be close to you. And you're taking me on all kinds of places where I don't even want to be. And then I have to come and ask forgiveness. This is the nature of a Western mind. This is how we think. It's not an individual thing. It's a reality of the nefesh. Because the way that religion was presented to us, the way that we understand our obligations, is from a very unhealthy place. It's from a place that's toxic to the human soul. And that's why when we are supposed to be coming back with a broken heart and saying, I'm sorry, we actually tense up, get angry, and we don't even want the relationship anymore. And so there's a tzad, when a person starts believing in Yediyah, that a person who has been used to having a toxic relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's suddenly going to feel like, oh, if it's all him, then I don't need to do anything anymore. Now I can do whatever I want. He can't blame me. If the only reason he was doing things was so that he doesn't get blamed, because this is how he grew up, this is how the household worked, that if your father notices what you do, if your mother notices what you do, then that's when it gets bad. That's when they start blaming you. But there wasn't really a drive to make the world better, to make humanity better, to make this a place of kedusha, to make this a place of oineg, to make this a place where people can realize that they were created leisaneg el Hashem, ilahon is mizif kevoidoi. So then, when we come at a person like that and we tell him about the idea, we tell him that really HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that dictates everything, he feels like Hitra Ritzir, that he doesn't have any reason anymore why he can't do bad things. But the truth is the complete opposite. The truth is that when a person knows that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that makes it easier for him to surrender all his desires, that he doesn't take care of nothing. As long as he thinks that he has the choice, then he's pushing, he's shoving, he's hustling, because he thinks that eventually by doing that he's going to get more, he's going to gain more, he feels in charge, he feels in control. But when he knows about the idea, he knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge of everything, then he can just surrender to him completely. And when we surrender to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's when our real nature can come out. What we want to surrender to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the mind that has been filled with all kinds of wrong information. And as long as in that mind he's trying to help, he's hurting. As long as that mind is struggling to make things better, he's making things worse, because he doesn't have the right information. So the first thing has to be a complete surrender to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're mekabel what he does, one way or the other. And the reason you don't want to do a chait is because you don't want to be poigim in the bria. You don't want to hurt anything. Kol shkenat yourself. Kol shkenat your neshama. You don't want to cause pain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creation. Whether it's the pain that you're going to suffer, the pain that somebody else is going to suffer, any kind of pain you want to stay away from. It has to come from a pure place in the heart. Not because of a threat, not because of blame, not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come with kindness. It's because you belong to good. You are good, and all you do is good. And so this is an area that if the Oves HaKadoshim would have closed up this area, then we would have had a Geula already a long time ago. And there's a pasuk that says, "V'Timna hoisa pilegesh le'elifas." That Timna was from the family of Seir, and there's different shittas of how she came out of Seir. One of the shittas is even that Eliphaz was with the wife of Seir, and Timna was actually his daughter. And then she became his Pelegesh. Now today that sounds really ugly, but back in the day, in Egypt and in other places, especially the royal families, would marry within the family. So there was more than one pharaoh that was married to his own sister. And they had a lot of genetic issues because of that. They had different problems with their bone structure and other things that the pharaohs were suffering from because of these types of relationships that they came from. But nevertheless, Timna, says Reb Tzodok, represents a specific type of belief. And she, Chazal teach us, wanted to come and get married to Yakov Avinu, because she realized that this nation has a connection to the truth that no other nation has. And Yakov Avinu didn't want to marry her. And Chazal complained. Chazal say that he should have married her, should have married Timna. Because after Yakov Avinu did not marry her, she went and she became the Pelegesh of Eliphaz. She said, "I'd rather be a shifcha in this family than be a queen in another family." Because she was the daughter of Seir, or at least Seir's wife, and she was Seir was a leader. Eventually, Edom became over there in Har Seir, because these two families got involved with each other. But originally, Seir had all the different alufim that are there in Parshas. I don't remember where it is. It's the end of a parsha. Either told us, I think it's at the end of Parshas told us, or the end of Parshas Vayishlach. There's all the alufim of Esav, and the alufim, some of the alufim relate to Seir and his family. Aleph Loitan, Aleph Timna. There's a machlokes if this Timna, the Rishonim talk about if this Timna is the same Timna, or there was also a male Timna that was a son of Seir. But it's clear that Timna had an interest in the family of Yakov Avinu. Now, what does she represent? So says Reb Tzodok, Judaism, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, represented that everything in the world was created for the purpose of the one, was created for the purpose of the unity. And therefore, everything that happens in this world is happening from the original source of the unity, and it's going to end up in the unity. So as a result of this kind of thinking, there's different interpretations of how you're supposed to live now, based on this reality. So we know the facts, right? There's a point at the beginning of creation where HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides that he wants to create people and he wants to give them pleasure. Now, from there starts coming out all the different koiches, like we mentioned many times, the 6 midas, Kisheshes Yom Amos Hashem, and these start interacting with each other in ways that become more and more complex until we have a human being. Now, Avram Avinu, to his understanding, the goal was the spiritual. And therefore, Avram Avinu was Mekayim Kol HaTorah Kula, like it says. However, he wasn't Mekayim it on a physical level. He was Mekayim the spiritual side of the Torah, the sichlius of the Torah. Then came Yitzchak, and Yitzchak is the Midas HaGvura. So Yitzchak took this same story, and his interpretation was that if you want this to have a kiyum, it has to have a physical manifestation. And this we see also in reality, that it says that when Avram Avinu was going towards Eretz Yisrael in Parshas Lech Lecho, it says, "V'sanefesh asher asu b'choran." So Chazal teach us, what does it mean, nefesh asher asu b'choran? That they created nefashis. How did they create nefashis? But Avram was Megayer Anoshim, and Sarah was Megayer Anoshim. Obviously, we're not talking about gear. There wasn't yet Judaism. There wasn't a nation. But we're talking about explaining to them the principles of life and how reality really works, and teaching them that there's a purpose. And these people started following Avram because they understood life from his perspective, and they wanted to live that life also. However, those nefashis all got lost. Because there was no physical side to their avodah, so then how are they going to give it over to children? Children can't yet understand anything about life and understand how this really works. They don't have the brain capacity to really get the principles of the sichlius. So therefore, Yitzchak started focusing on the physical side. And this went very strongly into Esav. This is why Yitzchak loved Esav, Kitzayit Befiv, that Esav always kept asking him questions about physical that don't even make sense in the spiritual. Like, for example, how do you master salt? So spiritually, you don't master salt. Anybody who would be connected to the spirituality of the mitzvahs would know that you don't master salt. But because it was only physical, so if we master everything. So how do you master salt? And different things. And in his name itself, you see it. The name Esav represents the Olam HaMaaseh. And because Yaakov grew up with Yitzchak and Esav, this mentality rubbed off on him. So Yaakov was a combination of Avram and Yitzchak. Yaakov was a combination of the spiritual focus and the physical focus. He didn't focus fully on the physical, like Yitzchak and Esav. However, there was a big portion of the mentalities of Yitzchak and Esav that rubbed off on him. And this caused a lot of problems later when he wanted only Rachel, because he was attracted to that side of Rachel that's Yefas Torah, Yefas Mara, meaning that physically the Bnei Rachel are perfect, like Yosef and Binyamin. That's why they're called tzaddikim, Yosef HaTzadik and Binyamin HaTzadik, because a tzaddik is somebody whose actions match his beliefs. Like the pasuk says, "V'tzadik be'minosa yichya," that a tzaddik lives in accordance with his beliefs. That's what makes him a tzaddik, that actually every manifestation of his is in accordance with how he believes it should be. Mashenken, the Bnei Leah, their main koyach is believe. Their main koyach is the pnimius. And therefore, v'ein elei rakas, mibachutz, it doesn't look too good. But the pnimius is holy. This is why Leah was supposed to marry Esav, in order to balance out, like we know that a woman always comes to balance the man. So Leah, who's beautiful in the pnimius, should marry Esav, who's only beautiful in the action. And Yaakov is beautiful in the pnimius, will marry Rachel, who's beautiful in the action. But there's a lot of confusion that came over here. Lavan had his share also in the story, and Yaakov ended up being with Leah, even though he wanted to be with Rachel, and then came out Reuven, who couldn't be a Bechor anymore because the machshava wasn't the way that it should have been. And then the story with Yosef, and eventually what ended up happening is that we have the two meluchas, the melucha of Yehuda, the Malchus Yehuda, which is going to come back b'meher b'yameinu, that the David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam, and we had also the Malchus Yisrael. And the Malchus Yisrael actually were bigger kings in the sense of having nations. They had a bigger nation than the Malchus Yehuda. Malchus Yehuda only had 2 tribes. They only had Yehuda and Binyamin. Masha'en came the Malchus Yisrael, which were from the Shevet Yosef. They had a lot bigger crowd. But they, because of their way of understanding Torah, because of their way of understanding life, they ended up becoming completely lost in the Goyim. Because there was a soul that was lacking. There was a pnimius that was lacking. And that's why we know that Yehuda is the shevet from where all the kings of Klal Yisrael need to come, because Yehuda represents the heart. And this is ultimately what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants our heart. Rachmana liba boya. So back to Timna, it says Reb Tzodok, Timna represents this belief that somebody says, if it's true that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then I can do whatever I want. And that's why her name Timna means that she does kol dover hanimna with this excuse. That, how can you blame me? What do you want from me? Hashem created me, didn't he? So what are you asking me to do better now? It's not my fault. Talk to him. And Chazal say that Yaakov Avinu should have married her. They should have been mekarev her. Because she wanted to be part of Klal Yisrael. She recognized that the true yichud is here. Only under the umbrella of the true yichud could such a belief have some type of a stance, could such a belief really be even expressed. And therefore, when she saw that Yaakov is not taking her, she went to Eliphaz, which was from the same family, which was Mitzad Esav. And then what happened? Eliphaz and Timna had a baby. That baby is called Amalek. That because Yaakov Avinu didn't accept this as part of Judaism, he didn't accept this belief as an accurate one, he said, no, we can't take this. You're going to start doing whatever you want, and you're going to blame Hashem for it. That's not right. That's not Judaism. If that's not Judaism, then we got ourselves an Amalek. What's Amalek? Amalek is always the suffix. Maybe now you're doing something that Hashem doesn't like. But Hashem created everything. How could that even be? But if they didn't accept Timna, it means that there's a way of expressing this yichud where something can be done wrong. If something can be done wrong, Vayovei Amalek lilochem b'Yisrael. V'ata oyev v'yigeh v'lo yoreh lehem. You've forgotten yourself. You've forgotten your connection. And therefore it says, V'hoye boniach Hashem lekecha lecho mikol ovecho misoviv timcha zecher Amalek. Not before. As long as you're doing evil, leave Amalek. You should be doubting yourself. Don't cause evil and blame Hashem. Doubt yourself. Have the suffix. But when you're finally going to be so good that there's going to be no evil in you, forget that suffix. Don't let it chaper with your belief. Because if you do that, then all the other nations can come back in. What did Amalek do? They, after Klal Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim and everybody was afraid of them, Amalek comes and says, I can fight them. I might lose, but I'll fight. And that already, like Chazal say, it's mitzanen de ambati. It makes it cold for other people to come in. Meaning the moment a person already has a doubt about his divinity, then all evil can overtake him. He can fall into all kinds of places. And so our job, if we want to go back to the unity, if we want to go back to recognizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our hearts, is that we have to get to a place where we don't want to cause any pain. We just don't want to. Not because somebody's going to blame us, not because we're going to be punished, not because whoever it is going to come with kindness and it's going to say, and it's going to be busha. All that is excuses. They're for children. The real reason is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the beautiful, perfect world. We don't want to violate it. We don't want to cause damage to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu created. And that, when we have that koyach within us, when that koyach gets developed enough, then we can go to Timcha Zecher Amalek Mitachas HaShemayim. We shouldn't have any doubt. We shouldn't have any doubt that everything that's going on inside of us is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is nothing else. Ein oid milvadoi, klal, nothing. No force, no thought, no feeling, no emotion. It's all Him. And then, from that place, a person could start surrendering his beliefs, surrendering his way of thinking, surrendering his habits to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to find new ones in its place. And so this is an important understanding when we speak about Reb Tzodok, because people today are not used to thinking in these terms. And therefore, as soon as you take away what they're used to being afraid of, they suddenly feel like there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. It's not about fear. Being good is not about fear. and to those who being good is only about fear, they're inviting upon themselves all kinds of judgment. This is why we're in such a place. This is why the Goyim could keep beating us up again and again and again and again, and we know that the Goyim have no power. Only Hashem has power. So how did the Goyim have power to treat us the way that they did over all this time in the Golus? It's because our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu was one of fear. And kasher yugar tu bali, if a person relates to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from that lens, then he gives the Goy ideas about how he should torture the Yid. Those thoughts that the Goy was having, that he needs to go against Klal Yisrael, those thoughts originate in Klal Yisrael. Like the Pasuk said, Asher shevet api. Asher is just the stick of my anger. You made me angry. The way you interacted with life caused anger within the collective soul. And now the Goyim are going to manifest that anger into action. They're going to give you a taste of what you've been cooking. And this is the true motivation behind the Golus. Chazal set us up in such a way, after Klal Yisrael didn't behave the way that they were supposed to in the Zman HaBayis, and Klal Yisrael showed that they're not mature enough to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through love. They're not mature enough to understand the importance of their actions. They're not smart enough to recognize that everything they do, everything they think, everything they speak has repercussions that continue to eternity. So Chazal set up the Torah in such a way that we're going to see it from the eyes of fear. And what's going to happen? Everybody's going to come after us. We're inviting them. We're giving them instructions. And so when we remove the violence from within us, when we remove the fear from within us, when we remove the anger from within us, it goes away from the entire globe. It goes away from the entire creation. We, Klal Yisrael alone, if we erase the anger within our hearts, there will be no more anger. Not in the Goyim, and not even in the animals. And so, when David will come to make shalom, when Yehuda will have his way, when we will know that ultimately, Rachmana liba boya, it's about the heart, then Vigar Ze'evim Keves. That even a wolf will be able to live with the sheep. Because if there's no anger in Klal Yisrael, there's no anger in the wolf. If Klal Yisrael are not eating each other, then the wolf won't be eating any other animals either. The main reason that people are fighting is because the halacha has been presented to us in a way of fighting. So our mind has been programmed to fight. Our mind has been programmed to argue. Our mind has been programmed to debate. And now we interact with life in this way. And this causes life to interact with us in this way. Every creature has his own understanding, has his own interpretation, has his own way. And now they're arguing with each other. Everybody wants to win. They're not complementing each other like they should. Why are we different than each other? So that we can complement each other. But that's only when we interpret life in the way of love. But when we interpret life in the way of fear, oh, he's different than me. Oh, it's a threat. Person feels like he needs to eliminate the threat. Target locked, fire. But that's only because our mind has been programmed that this is how we interact with life. And this is wrong. This is what brings all our tzoros. So we have to learn the Torah in a way that we understand the ultimate message, not to just follow the words. The words are a trap if you follow them just up the pshat. You have to understand the ultimate goal. You have to understand what are they trying to impact over here. What they're trying to impact is your heart. And only when you work with your heart will you get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, he says, all the fighting is mitzad the differences, that everybody is different. Avol mitzad habirer hagomer, when we'll have the complete realization, shahakol bidei shemayim, az yeh madreges ele ve'ele divrei lekim chayim. Shehi madreges Reb Meir kenis kelel. So then, when everybody will be ready to go into this zone, when everybody will be ready to surrender to the yichud, then we'll be paskening like Reb Meir. Then we'll be realizing that the yichud is behind everything. Then we'll be able to go back, like we mentioned before, to the Misha Omar V'hoyo Olam, to the one that was there before everything started, to the beginning. From where everything came out, from where everything happened, we'll be able to connect to that yichud. Then there's no room for fighting. Adrab. You're like this and I'm like that, good. Now we have more. Now I can have a taste of you and you can have a taste of me. It's not a reason to fight because we're different. It's a reason to come together. We can benefit from our differences. It's not a chachma to make everybody like me. It's a chachma for me to be able to live with how everybody is. To be able to gain. To be able to have the chachma of mikam elamda iskalti. To recognize that the differences allow me to understand myself better. Because the areas that are pronounced in one person are not so pronounced in another person. So if they're very subtle, that person won't understand himself. But by seeing how the other person has a certain feature, has a certain habit, has a certain understanding, so that brings out from us different sides that we might not have access to if there wasn't other people. And therefore, the goal is that everything comes back to the yichud. The goal is that we do pasken like Reb Meir. Aval achshav lo nikva locha ke Reb Meir, keniske le'el, v'chan alocha ke Beis Hillel. So we pasken like the Beis Hillel, that somebody is Rosh V'Riboy, Besukkah, V'shulchana B'soich HaBayis, for now he's Yotze. Why? Because it's not yet V'hoi Banich Hashem Lekecha L'chom Mikol Levecha Mesov. We don't trust him. We don't trust him to tell him that everything is Hashem. Maybe he doesn't understand what that really means. Maybe he doesn't know how to live on that level. And therefore, if he wants to take charge of his Yir Shemaim, so be it. But, like Reb Tzodok mentioned before, and I'll say it in his Lashon. He says, Mikol Mokoim, lo zu haderech yishkan oira b'teach b'shem Hashem. If you are trying to gain light from bitochen, if you're trying to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you cannot do so if you don't recognize that even your Yireh Shamayim comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.